Alright guys, so I've been working on a little project for a long time, and by a long time I mean this has basically been a year going since I first got my tax stamp for my SBR, and I think I mentioned this in some of the videos before, but I did buy basically LMT's standard Defender 2000 SBR, and for the reason is I wanted to take on the project of building a MK18 Mod 0. Now a lot of people build MK18s, but they basically go off of just like random pictures of like SF guys who have MK18s, and they end up just botching it, right? And there's not really a wrong way necessarily, because those guys do use them that way and they kind of put their own stuff on there, but I wanted to go basically like as far back to its original origins as possible, so I ended up deciding to go with a MK18 Mod 0 build. Now, the MK18 Mod 0 is basically the starting point for a CQB rifle for naval warfare, essentially, and they wanted something close quarters, something you could use on ships. So like a lot of the VBSS, like vessel boarding, search and seizure type stuff, these guys started with the MK18s, and I'm going to kind of go into a tabletop review of my MK18 just to show you all the original components and basically where they started with this. Now, because this is just an SBR, I don't actually have a full auto one, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. That being said, with the budget build in mind, and this is budget, and it's like, you know, thousands of dollars in, it's budget. But anyway, basically, I'm going to show you what I've done with it and how far I've gotten to this point, essentially. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay, so now we're going to move into the actual tabletop part of the MK18 Mod 0. And you might ask, you know, how I know specifically which parts are the accurate components to a MK18 Mod 0 build. Well, I actually do have a source for you here. Let me pull that over. Basically what I have here is the Department of Defense MK18 Mod 0 Operator's Manual. And you know, I've spent quite a bit of time flipping through this. It's a pretty long manual. You know, you got, I don't know, maybe 200, 250 pages, and I basically read through all the components. And you know what? I kind of want to just spare you from the details. Basically, most of the manual itself is really just basically like how to operate an M4, like the standard components, you know, how to charge the gun and, you know, that kind of thing. And basically, you know, like all of that is just really basic, but there are some details that do specify exactly what components go on the MK18. But like I said, I'm going to spare you from the details, and we'll just move right into the actual components. So what I have here essentially is basically LMT had a big involvement in building the MK18 Mod 0. Like as you can see, some of the components like the LMT rear sight, the SOP mod stock, these are components that LMT still sells, and they're a big part of the iconic MK18 Mod 0. SOP mod stocks are also used, you know, in the M4A1 SOP mod program, but you know, basically between like cross platforms, a lot of different builds actually use this same stock. Now let's see. We basically look at the internal components. You have a light contoured M4 barrel. This one's actually an LMT because I have an LMT upper. But basically, LMT did provide 10.5-inch barrels for the MK18 Mod 0 when they first came out. It was only later that they actually switched to a 10.3 build. And that came a little bit later with Colt's involvement, because Colt did have also a big hand. You know, like for instance, they used Colt lowers, you know, the M16A1, which is why I have an A1 grip on here. Even though technically this is an A2, that's really the only difference here. I have Knights Armament quad rail, and I also have the Knights Armament the vertical grip. And so those two are iconic components on the basically on the MK18 build. One of the, oh, and also I forgot, they also do use the Knights Armament Compensator, that is the quick detach compensator for their NT4 5.56 suppressor. I basically don't have that here right now, but basically they designed it so that, yeah, they wanted you to be able to use the MK18 the Knights Armament suppressor to go with this gun. Yeah, I mean, some of the other components are pretty simple, but for the most part, This is in its rawest form, the closest to the MK18 Mod Zero's original concept and design directly from Crane. They also used basically a light system from Surefire. So this is one of the older ones. It's an incandescent bulb, uses three 123A batteries, and then an ARMS QD mount. This is actually shown directly on the manual, and I actually have seen the exploded diagram that shows you each component. So like the rear pressure switch, and that's also a clicker, basically for constant or momentary. The ARMS mount, the thicker body style here, and basically all the different heat sinks and everything into the light. This is the exact one that they originally set up with the MK18. But anyway, I've really enjoyed building this. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry, I did forget one more thing. And this is a critical component that actually a lot of people don't see just because it's so small, is the CQD, which is a close quarters defense end plate for where the buffer tube is, and this is just set up for single point or 2-point sling mounts with the any kind of like hook style sling. But that is a pretty critical component that most people don't know goes on the MK18. But beyond that, it's really just a pretty simple and straightforward M4 essentially. I don't have the happy switch on here, but yeah, and then because they did design it for use with a suppressor, they also used the PRI gas buster charging handle, and this is actually designed to alleviate gas pressure, and that is also another small detail, just like this end plate, that people typically don't know about with this specific latch, because they do come with a bunch of different configurations. But anyway, that's really the MK18 build right there for you, and they just use standard GI magazines. These are used in vessel board search and seizure, basically Navy SEALs. There's a lot of different groups in the military that actually use this base design. However, like I was saying, there is no real right way to build any MK18. You know, there's the Mod 1s now that are bigger and more popular and like more, they're basically like more current. But essentially, like this configuration is still used, and this is the original design, whereas, you know, most people will just throw together a bunch of the parts. And by all means, there's a lot of really cool different MK18s out there. But what I was really going for was what Crane originally designed, and I just wanted to finish that build essentially. So yeah, just a lot of small details, like this is a Gen 1 stock that they actually used without a QD. Just small things like that that I found through, you know, a bunch of research and through a bunch of sources that I found. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to go with the MK18, and I think we're going to do a little bit of shooting. So if you want to hang tight for a bit, then we're going to shoot this guy. All right, guys, so now we're going to actually go into the firing portion of shooting the MK18. So without further ado, let's do some shooting. You know, this is kind of boring. I think maybe I should put on some different accessories, you know, like for instance, use the Knight's Armament QD suppressor. So you got that on there. And let's put an aim point on it just for fun. Oh, looks like we're in some low light. Let's do this. All right, well, that was pretty fun. And yeah, basically this is my tabletop review of MK18 Mod Zero. And yeah, I just wanted to show that off with you guys just because, you know, projects are always fun, and I know that people like watching these kind of videos. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you liked it. And we also have a Facebook page, so you can feel free to check that out. I like to post kind of funny stuff and different things that you won't see on the YouTube channel. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.